Mark, we're just going to go to another book in the Bible. So, you understand it's okay to take our time as we work our way through it. And I appreciate your patience. And sometimes, as we work our way through it, sometimes we come to little portions of Scripture, and I really wonder, God, what are we going to do with that? What is it that you have us to get from that? And in the aftermath, it seems to be plain as day. But I want you to look with me at a portion of Scripture that'll bring us to the end of chapter 6 this morning. That shares with me this idea, and perhaps with you as well, that there's a tendency for me to come to some time in life where the strain is so great and where I cannot see what God is doing, that I want to take things into my own hand and try to fix it myself. You may have never been there. You may have never come to that kind of end. But I just want to encourage you, when you don't know what Jesus is doing, do not give up on Jesus. When you can't see it, when you can't understand it, don't somehow forecast your feelings on Him because He can see it and He does understand it. And understand this, that everybody goes through some less than desirable experiences in life. And sometimes it seems as if that dark, stormy season just goes on as if it will never come to an end. Life has a way of wringing our faith out and sometimes straining us emotionally and bringing us to really bad times in life, dark season. And sometimes the darkness isn't so much caused by what's around you as it is by what's inside you. As the fears, the anxiety, the depression, the worry, all the things that the circumstances and storms of life sometimes bring our way. And I just want to be transparent with you. When I went through brain surgery and recovery, the greatest strain for me was not a physical strain, but it was an emotional and a spiritual strain. It wasn't physically as much as it was other things. And as I was thinking my way through this, I cannot adequately describe the sensation of regaining consciousness and knowing that somebody had cut a hole in your skull and had been playing around in your brain. It was the weirdest sensation. In fact, so this may be more than you want to know, which indicates just don't walk out with me, okay? But when they did the surgery, they cut a hole with the intentions of putting that skull plate back in its place at the end of surgery and, I don't know, letting it heal and the bone did. But they didn't. The fear was that they were going to be back inside my skull in just a couple of weeks. And so instead of putting the bone back in its place, they covered it with titanium, which created for me the strangest sensations. One of them was, so the intelligence side of my brain, the information side of my brain, it said there is a covering over that hole. It's there. It's been put in place by skilled people. You have a hole in your head, but it's safe. The nervous system of my brain, which has, it senses things, it feels pain, it would scream at me, there is a hole in your head. So much so that I thought it was just me, but the first visit back to the doctor after surgery, the physician's assistant, one of the first questions he asked me was, when you bend over to tie your shoes, do you feel like your brain is going to fall out? I said, exactly. That's exactly how I feel. He said, it's normal. Don't worry about it. Huh? And it's but listen, the sensation was I cannot adequately describe it, but that wasn't what bothered me most. What bothered me most was trying to go to sleep at night, not knowing was it cancerous or not. What bothered me most was waking up the next morning and not knowing, am I living, am I dying? What bothered me the most was praying and saying, while I'm praying and asking God to do things, thinking with another side of my brain, God, I don't know what you're doing. I can't see you at work. I don't know what your plan is. I don't know where we're going after this. It was a dark season of life. And understand that they make pills for physical pain. They don't make pills adequate for the emotional, for the spiritual side of things. And listen, you may have been there. Your skull wasn't cut away physically. You may not have felt much pain, but you've been to a place where it felt like your emotions were on a roller coaster. You're up and you're down, and sometimes it seems like you're down a whole lot more than you're up. You've been to that through some season in life where you felt emotionally just wrung out, and spiritually you had a lot of questions. You just wanted God to show you, God, what are you doing? God, what is the plan? God, why is this happening to me? How is this going to turn out? Is there ever going to be another day, a better day? All the questions that come to your mind. And when those storms come in your life, please don't get out of the boat. Don't give up on Jesus just because you cannot see what Jesus is doing. Don't abandon him because it may feel like he's abandoned you, but it's just a feeling. It's not reality. And I want you to look with me at our text. And our text is, we pick up after there's been a storm. They've gone to a bad night. A night when they're trying to do what Jesus told them to get. Jesus gave them instructions, get in the ship, go from this side of the sea to the other side of the sea. They got in the ship. They're trying to get to where he told them to go, and they just can't seem to get there. The elements were contrary. They were like salmon trying to swim upstream. I mean, everything was against them. And listen, there are those voices in our world that tell us things that really aren't so. It may sound good, but it really is not so. Those voices that say, if it's meant to be, it will be. No. You try to take that advice into your marriage. If it's meant to be, it'll just be. No, listen, you got to work at it. I mean, it's not just going to happen. I mean, listen, it's not just going to just magically fall into place. If you have a relationship that's worth having, it's because you've made some sacrifices, you've worked along the way, you have been forgiven, and you have offered forgiveness. It did not just happen. You were involved in it. And please understand, so that voice that says, it'll just be, it's not a scripturally intelligent voice. I mean, listen, sometimes there's voices that say, if it's that hard, then maybe it's not the will of God. I mean, those voices say that they come with the idea that if it's right, if it's of God, if it's good, then it's supposed to just fall in place, and maybe it should be easy. That's not the way it works. They were in a ship, trying to do exactly what Jesus told them to do, and all the elements were against them. The wind was blowing. They were struggling. They were frantically struggling, trying to do what Jesus had told them. It was not just happening. It wasn't easy. It was a dark night. It was such a bad night that when Jesus came to them, they did not recognize that it was Jesus. And there will be another time when they will immediately recognize Jesus in the darkness. But on that night that they didn't see him. But what we pick up this morning is after that. Because please understand that there are storms in life. They're not lasting. There are dark seasons. They're not forever. There are terrible experiences that if we got to edit the manuscript of our life, we would edit those experiences out of the manuscript. We don't get to. And bad times, they're not forever times. Please understand, the storm does come to an end. It may not seem to be in sight right now today, but there is an end. Look with me if you go, Mark chapter 6. If you're there, say amen. Amen. And look with me beginning, if you're able to stand for a moment, and look with me beginning in verse 53. Beginning in verse 53, we're reading, this is after the storm. This is the next day, the sun rises. And when they passed over, I mean, when we left them last, they are struggling to get from one side to the other. They know what the will of God is, but it's not just happening. It is a struggle for them to do what God has asked for them to do. But now, verse 53, and when they passed over, they came into the land of Gennesaret, drew to the shore, and when they were come out of the ship, straightway they, the inhabitants, knew him, and ran through the whole region round about, and began to carry about in beds those that were sick, where they heard he was. And whithersoever he entered, into villages, or cities, or country, they laid the sick in the streets, and besought him that they might touch, if it were but the border of his garment. And as many as touched him were made whole. It really doesn't seem like these verses should follow the darkness of the storm, but they do. I mean, these verses, they have no hint of the storm that happened the night before. These verses are all sunshine and brightness and good experiences, but don't lose the fact they just had a really bad night. They've gone through a dark season. They've just had a storm the night before. But this is what happens after the storm. If you get nothing else, I hope that you get this. When you go through a storm, Jesus will not leave you in the storm. Don't leave him. On the other side of the storm, there is a better day that is coming. You may say, I don't think it'll ever happen. You don't know how bad it is. You don't know how dark the storm of my life is right now. Listen, I don't know where you're at. I don't know how dark the storm of your life is. Here's what I know. God does know. And as bad as it may be today, he's got something much better planned somewhere in the future. Don't give up on him. He has not given up on you. Don't. Would you bow your heads? Father, we thank you. We thank you that we can come to your word and have you to speak to us where we're at. Lord, we thank you for your spirit that challenges us, disturbs and bothers us, convicts us, comforts us. Whatever our need is, Lord, you know what you provide. Lord, we pray that you speak to our hearts this morning. You know where we're at in life, and you know what is coming in life. Lord, I pray that you would help us if there's those in our congregation this morning that are going through bad times. Lord, I pray you will encourage them. That you'll give them a sense of your presence, a reminder that we are not alone. That there is a God, and he loves us, and he cares for us. He has not sent the storm our way, and he has not left us in the midst of the storm. And he's got great plans. But I pray, Lord, that you would provide all we need to survive the bad times that come our way in life, and to serve you, because you deserve to be served. You are worthy of our worship. We ask these things in Christ's name. Amen. Please be seated. Don't give up the storm. You notice, I wonder what it felt like to be on the ship that night when they're struggling. I mean, first of all, there's all kinds of questions that they must have had, because there's humans like you and I. Questions like, did we really hear him right? I mean, if Jesus really wanted us to get from where we're at to where he's going, certainly he could have made it easier for this to happen. All kinds of questions that they may have had about Jesus. And then it probably was a night that seemed to go on forever. You know, bad times like that. They seem to just go on forever and ever and ever. And it probably was a night that just seems as if it was never going to end. But please understand something. In the Bible, it's 4 verses. It's 4 verses. It's 4 verses from the description of how bad the storm was to the description of how it got when Jesus got on board. 4 verses. Their storm is in 4 verses. The darkness, the bad night, 4 verses. That's all. Everything is relative. Even the storms of life. A storm may feel like it's a lifetime. And yet here it is. It's just 4 verses. And keep this in mind. Every storm has an end. Storms do not last forever. There is another day. There is a better day. There was a dark experience on the Sea of Galilee, but it was not their only experience. I mean, that was not that dark experience didn't describe everything. We say things like this. We say things like, the sun's coming up in the morning. Or we'll say something like, this too shall pass. By the way, those are really good things to say, because there is no dark season in life that lasts forever. There are some really bad places in life. Life throws some things at us that we say it's not fair, it's not right, it shouldn't be that way. And I think God from heaven would say, amen, you're right. It's not fair, it's not right. I didn't mean for it to be that way. I didn't plan that. We suffer things in life, and they do not, listen, bad things do not come to us from the hand of God. God is never described as the giver of bad gifts. He's never described as the one who does things less than perfect. In fact, he's described as the giver of every good and perfect gift. That's who he is. What comes from God's hand is good and perfect. If it's not good, it didn't come from God. He's not the God who does some things well and other things another way. He's the God who does all things well. Please understand, we go through bad times in life, black times, dark nights, times that kind of squeeze out our emotions, that strain our faith, that cause us to wonder, God, where are you? God, why this? And please understand, He hasn't abandoned us, He hasn't deserted us, and He did not bring the bad things into our life. He didn't, but He has a great plan. And He has not left us in the middle of it. And get this, that storm, that bad time, it may not seem like it right now, but it is going to come to an end one day. This too shall pass. The sun will come up in the morning. There is a better time that is coming. We may never know the storm that is raging in somebody else's heart. Here's what we can know. We are surrounded by people this morning that are a lot like us. They've gone through bad times too. We're not alone. We're not the sole adventure on those dark nights. We were surrounded by others we may imagine. That no one else knows how we feel. That no one else experiences the hurt we have. And it may be true that there may be many others that haven't had the same pain. But every human being goes through bad times in life. We suffer the loss of loved ones. We suffer upheaval in our life. We suffer the threat of security, financial and otherwise. We have relationships that come apart. We go through bad times in life, and we all do. But thank God we don't stay there. It's just 4 verses. And I'm not trying to minimize it. I'm really not trying to belittle it. Because I can remember some bad times in life where it just seemed like it was never going to ever be any better. But it is. It is. It's better. That dark season, it doesn't last forever. There's some things we share in common. Every one of us. Regardless of our social, economic background or standing, there's some things we all share in common. First of all, we've all sinned and come short of the glory of God. Every single one of us. Regardless of where we fit in the structure of life, every one of us has sinned and come short of the glory of God. Every one of us is going to have to deal with death. Our own, at some time. It's coming. It is appointed unto man wants to die. After this, the judgment. There's some things that we share in common. And we share troubles. Man that is born of woman is few days, and those days are full of sorrow. That's what the Scripture shares with us. We each share storms in life. We each face our own storms. We go through bad times. There are dark nights. There are bad seasons. But what we need to remember is we're really just passing through. We sing songs. So we don't sing it nearly as much as another generation, but sometimes we'll sing songs like, "This world is not my home. I'm just passing through." What's the next verse saying? "My treasures are laid up somewhere beyond the blue." And it's woven around the real factual concept that this is not where I'm staying. I'm just passing through. Whenever Pharaoh asked Jacob, "How old are you?" He said, "Few and evil have been the days of my pilgrimage." I'm just passing through. I'm just a pilgrim down here on earth. I'm just passing through. I mean, please understand that that's every one of us. We're just passing through. Guess what? The storm's just passing through too. It's not forever. There is a better day. There is a day when the sun comes up and you can see the sunshine. There is a time when the clouds roll away and you get a glimpse of light on the other side of that storm. That it is true that it's going to pass. We're passing through. The storms are passing through too. That they are not forever. There is a better time. They went through a terrible night where they had all kinds of questions, and they must have. They're human beings just like us. They didn't know where is God. They didn't even recognize God when He showed up when Jesus came. I mean, listen, they had all kinds of concerns. Are we doing what He said to do? Are we trying to accomplish His will? Why is it so hard? Why is it so bad? Why is it so dark? Why must it be like this? But it was just 4 verses. That's all. It passes. There's something else to consider. Not only is the storm passing, but there's peace on the other side of the storm. There's an interesting little subtle play in the text in the verses before it. Perhaps you remember when they're on the ship and the wind's blowing and Jesus comes walking to them across the Sea of Galilee and they don't recognize Him. They don't recognize it's Jesus. They think it's some spirit. Did you notice what we read in our text? When they came to the other side and they got off the ship, everybody recognized Jesus. Everybody, they all identified. It's verse 54. And when they came out of the ship, straightway they knew him. They saw him. Perhaps because there's a little bit of evil spirit in me. You know, everybody's an expert after the storm. Have you ever noticed that when it's all said and done, there's plenty of people tell you what you should have done? Everybody's an expert on the other side. The guys that were on the ship, and they didn't recognize Jesus in the darkness of the night. The next day, they got off the ship, and everybody said, that's Jesus. And everybody knows him. And we struggle with identifying him, and now everybody can see him. Everybody's an expert on this other side. But please get this. What required faith in the middle of the storm was plain as day when the storm had passed by. In the middle of the storm, it took some faith to believe the shape walking across the sea is Jesus. But when the storm had passed, it was plain and clear as day. It required a lot of faith in the process, but it was very evident after it. And I just want to encourage you that what we struggle to believe in the storm becomes very clear when the storm has passed. But hold on in the storm. Don't give up in the storm. Don't quit in that dark season. No, don't throw it away and say, I'm over this, I'm tired, I feel as if I've been abandoned, and so I'm going to walk away from Jesus. If you're a child of God, you can't lose your salvation because you're not in charge of keeping your salvation. That's God's work, not my work. And please, so I can't lose that. And I'll tell you what I can lose. In the midst of the storm, I can lose my witness. I can lose my testimony. In the midst of the storm, I can lose opportunities to serve him. In the midst of the storm, I can give up on him and act as if I'm not a child of God. I can forsake his plan for my life. Those are all options. Don't do it. When you cannot see him, don't quit believing that he's there. When you don't know what he's doing, hold on to the fact that he knows what he's doing. When you can't see where he's going, understand he knows exactly where he's going. When you can't even begin to imagine how all these things are going to fall in place, how it's ever going to be better, hang on to his promise that there is a better day coming. Don't give up. Don't give up. You're going to go through some bad times. We all are. Dark seasons. Don't give up. There was peace on the other side of the storm. Everybody recognized Jesus on the other side of the storm. What it took faith to believe in the darkness of night was clear as day when the sun shone. There's something else I want you to get. On the other side of the storm, the possibilities are astounding. Did you catch it in the description that Mark paints? They come across the sea at bad night. But the night comes to an end. And they get off right where Jesus wanted them to get off. When they get off, the entire community recognizes the one that they could only accept by faith in the night. And then Mark goes on to paint the scene that everybody starts coming to Jesus. The word gets out, Jesus has come to our side of the Sea of Galilee. And they begin to take their sick in their beds and bring them to Jesus. Did you catch the description? And wherever Jesus went, in the cities, in the villages, in the countryside. When he went to the bustling cities, that Jesus has come, let's bring our needs to him, and he met their needs. And he went to quaint villages, and when he got there, and Jesus has come, and let us ask him, and if we can just touch the hem of his garment, if we just can touch him, life can be changed. He goes to the quiet countryside where you think there's nobody, and they all begin to pour out, and everywhere he goes, something wonderful is happening. But it's on the other side of the dark night. It's on the other side of the storm. In the midst of the dark season of life, you and I think, God, how could you ever use this? On the other side of the storm, the possibilities are astounding. God will use it in great ways. You know, what I want to say is, Jesus, just tell me what you're doing, and I'll believe you. Please understand something. If I know what he's doing, it doesn't require any faith. It's when I don't know what he's doing that all I've got is faith. That's all they had that night as they went through the storm. Was their faith that Jesus is in the boat. And we're doing what Jesus told us to do. And it doesn't seem like it right now. But this has got to turn out all right. Because Jesus. The next day the sun came up. And what they could only do by faith that night became clear as day in the sunshine. You been there? You gone through some bad night? Well, the only thing that kept you going was saying, God, I don't understand. I don't know why. I don't like this. I know you're still God. And I know you said you love me. And somehow, you're going to do something wonderful. Let's go on through 4 verses. The description of God's goodness takes even less. He's good. I don't know where you're at in life. I don't know what season you're in. Here's what I know. Everybody in this auditorium either is going, has gone, or will go through a bad time in life. Time that wrings out your emotions, strains you. Please understand something. It's not forever. It's not the rest of life. It's not from now on. It is a season. It will pass. There is another day coming. The storm isn't forever. And the possibilities on the other side of the storm are astounding. What God can do, what God will do. Don't give up on him now just because you can't see what he's doing. Have faith that he is who he said he is. He's the good God. He's the giver of every perfect gift. He does all things well. That's who he is. He's not described by hate, but he's described by love. He is not explained by unkindness. He's explained as being compassionate and caring. That's who he is. And the darkness of my night does not change the identity of my God. Don't give up. Now let's just stand. I'm just asking about you.